will join us for that. Plus, we'll hear from both managers, Mikel Arteta and Frank Lampard. But we start the show in France. The last ever Coupe de la Ligue final, and boy, was it a showcase. Maybe not quite so much. PSG and Lyon playing to a 0-0 draw over 120 minutes. In penalties, PSG winning 6-5. They get the domestic treble and still have a shot at the Ford Trophy Haul that they seek. For more on this match, we're joined by Don Hutchison, Stuart Robson. Don, I'll start with you. As I mentioned, the last ever Coupe de la Ligue final, and maybe with good reason.
Oh my days, Sebby, that was a hard watch. That was a bit of a grind. All the superstars on show and they didn't perform. It was just a game that was lacking any intensity. The big players didn't turn up. The passing was quite pedestrian. Everything about the game was just, after an hour, you thought, well, this is going to go to extra time. Extra time after the first period, you thought, well, this is destined for penalties. And then in the end, the standard of penalties were pretty good.
Robbo, did we need those extra 30 minutes or not so much?
No, I've always been against extra time. I mean, I've done lots of tournaments where you know as soon as the game goes to extra time, it's going to go through that 30 minutes, it's going to be penalties. Extra time, in my view, is a complete and utter waste of time. And today showed exactly why. There was never going to be a result in that 30 minutes. The players were tired. The players couldn't go at the pace they wanted to. There weren't too many chances. It was a waste of time.
Don, we've talked at length on this show about what we assumed would happen to the French teams. It's all the end of their league canceled. Is that what you chalk this performance from both sides up to? Simply rust?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, PSG have had more competitive games than Lyon, so I expected a lot more from them. But it was just a case of, it was one of them, Sammy, where you were watching it and then everyone was moving at sort of a slow pace and the quality was... It was on the fringes of it. Neymar had so many little last-ditch passes where he was trying to feed his front men who were just missing by half a yard. The fullbacks, when they were trying to get wide and high, their crosses weren't good enough. The only thing I would say is taking anything from that game is Lyon's set plays. When they put corners in the box and wide free kicks, PSG looked all over the place. So I'm pretty sure when Gasperini is watching that game, he might take something from that. You know, from their corners, Atalanta, they are decent. They'll try and take some crumb of comfort, but it just wasn't a good spectacle. It just wasn't a good game.
Let's push forward and imagine what these teams might look like in the Champions League. Rob, I'll start with you. We've been talking a lot about Atalanta and PSG. You had PSG just the last time we spoke about that matchup. You still with that after this performance?
I think it's getting tighter. With every time you see PSG, it's getting tighter because they're not performing with the intensity you expect. I mean, Icardi, it took him about 40 minutes to touch the ball. I'm not sure what he was doing as the centre forward. There was no runs in behind. He wasn't linking up the play. Neymar was the one player, as you expect, would get on the ball and try and make things happen. You've got two midfield players that aren't going to be too creative. Marquinhos is the holding player and Verratti next to him. Gay, the other side of him as well. He's a good, energetic player, but he's not someone who's going to pick out a pass. So that was a major problem. No Di Maria, of course, against Atalanta. So at the moment, I would say it's fairly even between Atalanta and PSG. PSG need to up their game by another 10-15% if they're going to get past Atalanta.
Don, based on the performance you saw in this match, are you dropping your hopes for PSG?
I am. I was like Robbo. I thought I probably had it percentage-wise. I probably had 60-40 in PSG's favour, only just. But, you know, the form of Atalanta, the confidence that they've got, the amount of in the games that they've been playing at intensity. So you'd imagine Atalanta will come into this game pretty sharp and pretty confident. And even though PSG have won on penalties, they'll take some sort of confidence from that. But the bigger picture is, if they think they can play that against Atalanta, my word, are they in for, not a hiding, but they might be in for a lesson. So I'm pretty sure Thomas Tuchel will be getting into his players before that Atalanta game because that was nowhere near good enough. But Atalanta will be watching that thinking, we've got a lot more confidence and we can beat these.
Don, Juventus and Lyon, kind of the other side of the coin on this. Look, what will Juventus see in this match? Will they see a Lyon team that was really hard to break down for 120 minutes or a Lyon team that won't really threaten them for 120 minutes?
I think both, but more the latter, as you said there, Sebby. I think, you know, Lyon are not going to come out and play against Juve. They'll sit and protect what they've got, and it's going to be up to Juve to break them down. When you offer that carrot to Juve and you say, can you break us down? Then you think of the Douglas Costas and Ronaldos and Dybalas and the Higuains and the players that they've got going forward. It's a dangerous ploy, but I don't see any other way that Lyon can try and attack this game. If they make it open, they're going to lose. If they try and stay defensive and try and hit them on the counter, they've got a small chance, but the odds are heavily against Lyon.
Bravo, based on what we saw today, you think Juventus will struggle to break down this Lyon team?
I think Juventus will score, but I've just got a sneaky feeling that Lyon on the counter-attack could cause one or two problems. Memphis Depay didn't play particularly well, but he's given license to float wherever he wants to go. Then Belle's got that little bit of pace to run in behind. And I think they might start with Traore somewhere on that left-hand side, because when he came on, he looked as though he could go past people and get crosses in. But they'll probably start with the 3-5-2 as they did today, and they'll be quite defensive and then try and play on the counter-attack. I still think Juventus will have too much for them. They've got better players. They've been playing for longer. Even though they've not been playing well in Serie A, they'll win this tie and go through to the next round.
Thanks, gentlemen. One last look ahead then at the Champions League bracket. Of course, the action gets underway next Friday. Juve and Lyon in Turin on August 7th and August 12th, the date for that Atalanta-PSG showdown. One last look at the final Premier League table. Chelsea finishing in 4th, 10 points ahead of Arsenal in 8th. The two sides will meet in the FA Cup final at Wembley on Saturday. Let's hear from both managers now, of course, saying nice things about each other. First Frank Lampard, then Mikel Arteta.
I think he's done a really, really good job since he's been at Arsenal in a short space of time. I know that feeling. You're trying to lay down messages, repeat and try and drill things home and make relationships and see where you want the club to be taken forward. And from the outside, and it's always different from the inside, I particularly know that, but from the outside, I've got big respect for the way he's done his job.
As a manager, he's shown, since we went to Derby, the kind of person, the ambition that he has, and the way that he encourages his team to play. And again, this season he's done a really good job. We are both young. We are both trying to learn as well our position.
Arteta in charge then for both of the meetings between the two sides. This year they played in December, Chelsea a 2-1 away win, and then in January, 2-2 draw at Stamford Bridge. For more, we welcome back Bravo and Don Hutchison. We welcome in Craig Burley. Craig, I'll start with you. It's a final. We don't usually expect them to be all that aesthetically pleasing. What kind of game you think we get tomorrow?
Well, no, you're listening to Dan Thomas too long. I think we do. A lot of the finals, these days the pitch is perfect. Obviously, there's not going to be an atmosphere because of the scenario with the pandemic. So it'll be a little eerie because it's a showcase, domestic showcase game of the season. It's obviously happening in August, which is a first, I would imagine, ever. But look, there are two sides that will try and go forward. And in some sense, Arsenal have stopped doing that a little more against the better sides because they've been caught open. Trying to take teams on head-to-head. So certainly against Man City, that was their approach. Sit in, dig in, hit on the counter-attack with the pace and really utilise City's Achilles heel, which was their defending and the lack of protection of our back four. So it'll be interesting to see what approach Arteta's side taking this match in terms of how much they try and get on the front foot, try and boss the middle of the park, try and put Chelsea onto the back foot. Because in the two league games this season, albeit, one without David Luiz sent off after 26 minutes, Chelsea have been dominant in terms of possession and efforts at goal. So we know what way Chelsea are going to play. I think it'll be intriguing to see just the approach that Mikel Arteta takes.
Bravo, is a conservative approach for Arsenal the best approach?
I'm not sure they are going to defend quite so deep because when you've got Giroud up front, there's no worry about people running in behind you. If Pulisic plays, he's somebody who wants to get on the ball and run with it. He's not going to run in behind you. Willian the same. If he's fit enough to play, he's not going to make the forward runs in behind you. He's going to run with the ball at you. So I think Arsenal can play that a little bit higher and then try and win the ball back in midfield and still play their counter-attacking football, but slightly higher up the field with their pace they've got in the front three of Pepe, probably Lacazette and Aubameyang. And Aubameyang's going to be key for Arsenal, the way he can run in behind the wing-backs of Chelsea and get down the side of the right-sided centre-half.
Don, is it that straightforward? We've got two teams, each struggle defensively, each have incredible playmakers in the final third. We should have an open game?
I think it'll be an open game from Chelsea's point of view. I don't think Mikel Arteta will make it an open game. I think he'll try and copy the tactics like he did against Liverpool, like he did against Man City in the semi-final. I think he'll play with three centre-halves for sure. He'll have his wing-backs when they haven't got possession nice and narrow. And he'll have his midfield too, whether it be Xhaka and Ceballos just sitting in and trying to protect. I mean, them two actually are in decent form, but I don't see them being a matchup in the middle of the park against Chelsea. So I think Chelsea will bring a good game. I think we'll dominate the ball and massively dominate possession. It's just, can Arsenal dig in like they did against Man City, or do they lose a very early goal and then all of a sudden they're chasing the game, which I don't think would be the right thing to do for Arsenal.
Don, we gave you some homework. Pick the 11 for Chelsea in the FA Cup final. Where do you think the toughest decisions are for Frank Lampard?
Well, he's got a couple of players fit now. He's got Willian and Kante fit. So, listen, he's got a headache whether he brings Kante back into that midfield and Willian at the top end of the pitch. But in my mind, if I was sitting down with Frank, or Frank's picked his 11, I think he goes with more or less the same side that beat Wolves 2-0 and kept a clean sheet. I think at the top end of the pitch, he's pretty set in Giroud. I think Mason Mount and Christian Pulisic alongside him. Kovacic and Jorginho in the middle of the park. I would understand if Kante come in for either of those. Probably Jorginho. But at the same time, when you're picking this 11, I think of everyone, I think of me and the boys pick this 11, I don't think there'll be too many players out. I think we'd probably guess 10 of them.
Craig, I wonder what you think. Would you go with Kante over Jorginho, given the fact that Kante supposedly now is fully fit?
Well, he's apparently fully fit from the injury, but he's not fully fit in terms of match fitness. And the problem here is both of these defences need protection in front, and we know Kovacic and Jorginho are not the greatest defensive midfielders, so that's Kante's forte. But you're asking to bring him into an FA Cup final with a lack of match fitness, and that's a big decision to make. And I think for that reason, he's probably going to be on the bench. I do think Willian might miss out as well, and he's been an excellent player for Frank Lampard for most of the season, but he's really put his trust in Mason Mount. And Christian Pulisic has really nailed down a starting slot. I know he missed the semi-final. I think he had a little niggling injury. He didn't start at Liverpool because I think Lampard kept the same team that beat Man United. But when he came on in that game, he was fantastic, played well against Wolves, and he's definitely not going to miss out. So I think the big decision really is probably in front of the back line. And I suppose, what kind of back line does he go with? We've seen both these managers chop and change from back fours to back threes to back fives, and both have the option to do that.
Robbo, your assignment was to put together Arsenal's probable 11. Where are the tough choices there for Arteta?
Well, I think he'll stick with the same formation, the 3-4-3 that beat Manchester City. I think he'll stay with Pepe on the right-hand side, Aubameyang on the left, Lacazette through the middle. Ceballos and Xhaka will be the two midfield players who aren't great defensively. I mean, Xhaka can't get around the field. I think he'll go with Saka at left wing-back rather than Maitland-Niles. Maitland-Niles did well against Man City, but Saka, I think, is the better player. And then that means Tierney plays as the left-sided centre-half, and he's done a good job there. The one weakness for me is David Luiz, of course, the centre-half, but more so Holding if he plays as the right-sided centre-half. If people can get at him, particularly Pulisic, running in 1v1 situation, he's not a good defender. That would be a real worry for me. And Bellerin will come in at right wing-back. So that's the formation I think he'll play.
Sebi, and just to that point, I think one thing that Chelsea will try to utilise, and I think we may see Mason Mount or Christian Pulisic both coming in, certainly not at the same time, but maybe rotating, coming in and playing behind Giroud in that game to try and make the extra man in the middle of the park, because I think Chelsea will try and shift those two players about, Ceballos and Xhaka, for the reasons that Robbo mentioned, because quick passing around those two, they're not going to be able to get close enough. We know Xhaka's disciplinary record is poor. He makes rash challenges. So I think we'll see both Chelsea's wide men take up a more narrow position at times to try and overflow and flood that middle of the park to really get the upper hand in that Arsenal midfield, which isn't the strongest area of the team.
Robbo, I know he's only had 7 months in the job. Many of those months have been without soccer. What would a trophy in this match do for your impression of Mikel Arteta's first half season at Arsenal?
Well, when a manager that comes in, Mikel Arteta has done okay. He's got more discipline to the side. He did well by getting rid of Guendouzi when he was playing up. He gave an example to the rest of the players. I think there's more discipline in the way they play. I think they've got a game plan where they haven't always had a game plan in the last 3, 4, 5 years. But remember, they've lost to Brighton away. They've lost to Aston Villa away. They've lost to Olympiacos in the Europa League, really poorly at home when they're in control of the game. So winning a trophy, all managers when they first come into a job, we question whether they're going to win a trophy. Mauricio Pochettino, we say he did a brilliant job at Spurs, but never actually won a trophy. So that's why it was always a question. This will set Mikel Arteta up for the next season, the season after. If he can win this FA Cup, it'll be a major bonus for him and the club. And I think he will take Arsenal to the next level. What that next level is, I'm not quite sure.
Craig, we've asked it here on this show. Who needs this trophy more, Arteta or Lampard? I don't think it's particularly close. It would seem to be very obvious that Arteta, given the fact they finished 8th and that if they don't get this, there is no European football, absolutely needs this more.
Well, I don't know if any of them really need it. What they both need. I mean, this trophy, and for all the things that Robbo said about Mikel Arteta there, that stands true for Frank Lampard as well, because both these clubs have a rich tradition in this competition, particularly in the last 15 or 20 years. And, you know, both of them will want to get that trophy under the belt at one of the big clubs to say, look, I've shown I can win trophies at a big club. Now we get on with the rebuild. Chelsea are further down the road with their rebuild. But in some sense, and I don't know if it's going to make a difference to the ownership of Arsenal, the Stan Kroenkes of this world, but if Mikel Arteta's standing needs any more blown up to his bosses, his ownership, his board, then he can go to them with an FA Cup final if he wins it and says, listen, I've only been in here 6 months, it's not the strongest squad, I've put City out in the semi-finals, we've beaten Chelsea in the cup final, now give me the resources to go and rebuild this Arsenal team. Because let's be frank about it, a couple of weeks ago they were sitting 10th in the Premier League. This is a side that needs a rebuild, and to try and coax some more finances out of ownership, sometimes it takes something like this to try and convince an owner, a chief executive, that he'll loosen the purse strings, because actually I've got a little bit more confidence in this guy than I first thought. So from that scenario, I think it probably is Mikel Arteta.
Don, if we're talking about a rebuild, I would think European football is a pretty big part of that. How critical is this match for Arteta and the rebuild at Arsenal?
Yeah, it's right for all the reasons the boys mentioned. I mean, if he wants to, have a crack at it next season and try and finish in the top 4, he needs more players, he needs funds, which I personally don't think he's going to get. I think he's going to have to be clever in the transfer market. There's reports in England today that there might be a swap deal involving Guendouzi and Philip Coutinho, which would be a good move for Arsenal, but still it's not going to strengthen him at the back where, we've been saying for a decade now, Arsenal need to build from the back. In my opinion, they've got a very good goalkeeper, Martinez. I think he's their number 1 anyway. And then try and build from there and bring in, potential world-class players. They're not going to get world-class players at Arsenal because, the bigger teams are already probably at the front of the queue for those world-class players. So build from there. And if you can add the likes of Philip Coutinho, I think that'll be a good signing. But it's always the midfield and the centre-half which worry me. When I watch Arsenal play, over the years, they've been very gung-ho, especially against the top sides away from home. They've carried passengers left, right and centre. But now I think, as Robbo said before, there seems to be a game plan. You can see it. You can see when Mikel Arteta's putting the plan together. And it's not always going to come off because of the personnel that he's got. But you can see the direction that he's going in. And to win an FA Cup for both managers would be a fantastic achievement in a short space of time. But to answer the question, I think with Frank obviously sitting in the top 4, got loads of money coming in, we've seen Timo Werner and Hakim Ziyech already signed, and I think there's more to come at Chelsea. I think Mikel Arteta needs the FA Cup more than Frank does.
Sebi, just hold on a minute. I got to go back to Don here, because this is a sentence I never thought I'd hear anybody utter. A potential swap deal for Philip Coutinho and Guendouzi.
Yeah, that's what's in the papers today.
Did anybody read that, Don, and not laugh?
I don't know where they get the valuations from. It's ridiculous. But that was Robbo. Did you see that in the papers today? Did you see it?
It has been in the papers. Yeah, it's one of the moves that's been touted or been talked about. Guendouzi could be a good player eventually, but he's got to curb his enthusiasm, his discipline, his way he gets into tackles. He's not good enough to have a swap deal with Coutinho. They'd have to pay a lot more for Coutinho than they would for Guendouzi.
Well, we'll save
he's
a little
never
bit.
A Barcelona player, is he?
More chat about the comings and goings a little bit later in the show. But guys, we got to get your predictions. Don said 3-2 yesterday to Chelsea. So did everybody else on the show. Craig, who you got Saturday?
Look, I don't want to sit in the fence in a sense, but I think Arsenal's front 3 can cause problems. put it one way. If Chelsea have a slack, sloppy day at the back, like City did, then I think Arsenal can get the win. If Chelsea don't, and I expect the back line to be drilled better than it's been certainly over the last few weeks, then I think Chelsea win the game. The league table doesn't lie. And I think they've got more options in that forward part of the field, even to come off the bench. So I'm just going to say Chelsea to take it.
Bravo, before I ask for your pick, I have to remind you, last time we did this, everybody picked against Arsenal in the FA Cup semi-finals, and surely it is that they beat City. Are you going to go and make it unanimous again and surely jinx it?
No, I'm going to go with Arsenal. They're a cup side at the moment. They're not good enough in the league because they're not consistent enough. But they've got some good players, not great players. They've got good players because they're not consistent. But on their day, they can cause people problems. And Arsenal have become a cup side over recent times. They give everything they've got into this game, and I think they might just nick it 2-1.
Do you know what it is, Sebi? Do you know what it is, briefly? This is Robbo trying to get his ban from the Emirates overturned.
No worries about that. I like being banned from there.
Yeah, it means you're doing your job well. Robbo, real quick, part of your job on Saturday will be to be at Wembley. What will an FA Cup final, as best as you can imagine it, be without fans?
Well, I had a good experience for the Manchester United versus Chelsea semi-final, which is exactly the same. There's obviously no fans there. You're high up in the commentary gantry. The pitch seems a mile away. There's no sound. It's a difficult one to commentate on, but you still look forward to the game, and it still should be an excellent game between the two sides.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We will be all over tomorrow's FA Cup.